Hello, 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 Kenny the Puppy with yet another writing tips video, and last one I was talking about plot twists and kind of how to pull them off easier and the two different kinds of plot twists I use, and I assume one of the questions you guys will have next will be, well, how do I pull a plot twist off without alienating a part of my audience? Like, either people don't assume it, and it's just a huge twist, to the point where they can't believe it, and then they, therefore, are disconnected from the story because they're having a really hard time, processing the plot twist, and that can really take them out of the story. If it's that big of a plot twist, it can actually be a big detriment. And then on the other side, you have people who saw your hints way ahead of time, and they're just like, oh, this is cheesy. I know exactly what's going to happen. And then the plot twist happens, and they're like, yep, I knew it was going to happen. What's with this? So this is coming from someone who, I don't really have too much of credentials, but in a few of my stories, I've had plot twist moments where I was able to shock everyone, but there were some people who were like, what? I knew it! So anyways, I guess I should go ahead and explain that, first of all, the number one rule when, correct, the number one rule, oh yeah, okay. So the number one rule you want to have is that you need to treat your audience like they're smart. You need to, put it in your head that no matter how young your audience is, treat them like their very big brain. And so that way, you're going to start from there. It doesn't mean you have to write super big, massive, dangerous plots, but you need to at least be able to imagine that your audience can pick up on these things. So then as you're leaving little hints here and there on, what the characters are doing and stuff, you want to be able to imagine that, oh, because of these subtle cues you're giving, say a character has slightly angry eyes or something as they're looking at a rock, then you can assume that maybe later on the character will attack that rock or something like that. So, but you need to be able to have the confidence in your audience that from simply hinting this, they will then infer, what to do next, or they will be able to imagine what will happen next. Really bad thing there, but anyways, I guess the next thing you want to do is write multiple levels of hints for your audience. You want to have some that are really high IQ that maybe only some people will notice, they're really a detailed things I don't know. Say it's something sciencey, and maybe you add in a little hint because you are a nerd and you add little hints that have to do with science. So you make something like that, and then other people who know about those same facts, they'll take it as a hint. But then there'll also be other hints that are just a lot simpler and aren't super complex or something, I don't know, maybe they're just this precariously placed needle or something, I don't know. But it all has to relate to this then plot twist that they're all pointing to, which that is going to have the big wow moment. And so that means you're still going to have, for the younger part of the audience, they'll still have a kind of idea in their head as to what's going to happen, or at least the suspense that something's going to happen, and then the smarter ones will be able to put the picture together a little bit faster, but they'll still feel like they're involved in the story because they'll be the ones going through all the loops. Basically, you want to treat it like a puzzle piece, but you're making a puzzle piece for two different groups of people, for those who are just reading the story for fun and those who really want to deeply engage with the story. So let's just pretend these are actually very critical eyes. So these are the critical audience, and then these are the casual fans. And you want to kind of set up little plot points along the story for each audience member so that they can, in their own way, discover the plot and kind of find out what happens next. And a lot of smaller hints for those who will be looking at the story more critically, and a lot of, just broader hints she saw no problem with this guy, even though he was quite suspicious, for those who are a little bit less skeptical. Or I don't know, this is where, for the general audience, is where you generally put in the the typical but they didn't know this, or some sort of contradictory statement. In one of my stories, I have a line that I very deliberately put in the story, which was, she loves her family so much, there's nothing that could go bad here. And then everyone else is like, oh no, but by then the general audience was like, oh no, but by then there were already quite a few people who had picked up on all the other smaller hints of what was going to go down. So I guess you would want the hints for just the very critical thinkers to be starting a little bit earlier, and then the hints for the general audience to start a little bit later. But that way you can engage both audiences and their different brains. I'm kind of rambling. I'm sorry if this is way too long. Alright, I was originally going to make a whole video about this, just about how to make your stories deeper, but basically imagine this line right here is the plot, and then all these here are kind of the subtle clues, the different levels. So the plot will go across here, but then the people who are more critical will see all these roots, all these different vines, and they can put the pieces together to then make out the much broader, deeper part of the story. But that way you can still entertain the audience on like a simple level, those who are just there for the fun story, while leaving hints for those who love a more deeper think, and then boom. And then that way, if you do have a sequel, you can then take this same line, and then since you've already explored all this up here, you can then for the sequel go a little bit deeper, and then and explore those things in more detail. And then for the other sequel, you just steadily get a little bit more and more until you kind of are at the end of the story and you don't really have anything else to share. So yeah, that's kind of character depth can help you, I suppose. I don't really know. All right, so I suppose the last thing I want to go over, which is the main reason I made this video, is to simply, how do you get the point where you want your general audience to be more critically thinking? And this is kind of what I think of either weeding out the weak, which I just do because I write for free and people can come and go however they want. They're not paying for whatever. But so either you can weed out the weak, where you basically just write a bit deeper stories until all the people who aren't interested in that leave, and then you can just have your fun, or you can train your audience in a way to kind of see the story the way you want them to see it, where by giving them like little hints as to what might happen, then it actually happens, and then you can kind of train the readers to kind of associate certain types of things with a revelation or this deeper topic. So that way, when you continue to kind of hint things, this is my symbol, I guess, for hinting. So then that way, whenever you leave like smaller hints throughout the story, you can eventually just like very small things. You want to have like small puzzles that are going on throughout the story that the audience can start to pick up on, and then as they're picking up on these puzzle pieces, you reward them in the story for picking up on those small things, and you kind of, in a way, teach them how to understand your story and how to comprehend what's going on, so that way, later on, whenever you start leaving hints for much bigger parts of the story, then that way your audience has already been trained in a way to see those hints and to put two and two together and have a better idea for what is going to happen later on in the story. So I hope that makes sense. If not, then oopsie daisies. I guess that's kind of it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see if I can make a video. Bye-bye! I kind of forgot to, tell you guys the most important thing about writing all this stuff, so, sorry about that. Basically, I'm not gonna go into super big detail or anything, but basically, you want to make sure that whenever you are writing just pretty much anything, you want to make sure that it is... Okay. Basically, no matter what you're writing, like foreshadowing or whatever, you always want to make sure that you're not exactly foreshadowing the event that's going to happen. Instead, you're going to foreshadow the why it's going to happen. So, not what you want. Oh, yeah, I'm using a strange app. You're going to instead foreshadow why something's going to happen. So you're going to be foreshadowing character motivations, character reasoning and all this kind of stuff, and maybe even a little bit of how. Maybe you could even foreshadow just a little bit of how, just depending on what exactly you're foreshadowing, but you pretty much never want to foreshadow what is going to happen, so that way, no matter what, even your super smart, big brain, intellectual readers and viewers and whatever, they won't be able to see exactly what's going to happen. They know something's going to happen, and they know why something's going to happen, because they picked up on the foreshadowing, but they're not going to be able to pick up on what exactly said character is going to do. So that will still leave them in suspense, not entirely sure what's going to happen, but they'll know why, and it'll make perfect sense as they're reading it, and they might even know how, but, then the next thing is then you'd be, while setting all this up, you'd also be setting up intrigue as to how the characters would react to something. So you want to set up, while you're setting up the problem itself, you also want to set up hints or clues as to how the characters are going to react to said events, which then will lead to even more plot and even more setups and even more crazy stuff. So, yeah, sorry, I forgot to add all that in. Bye-bye!